Nollywood films.
Donc on a Cinekita, Nollywood TV qui ont fait l'expérience du doublage. Est-ce que vous pouvez peut-être nous raconter les difficultés que vous avez eues ou comment ça s'est passé quand vous avez doublé un certain nombre d'heures de contenu Nollywood qui vient de Africa Magic? Est-ce que vous pouvez en parler un petit peu?
So Cinekita and Nollywood TV in particular have experienced the dubbing and translating Nollywood films. Could you explain to us how did it start, especially that you started the particular number of hours to dub and translate?
C'est-à-dire les Nollywood, c'est un type de doublage qui n'est pas conventionnel pour nous. C'est pas le type de doublage qu'on fait sur les séries en général américaines ou anglaises, quoi. C'est un autre type de doublage.
Nollywood is another type of dubbing. It's non-conventional type of dubbing compared to Hollywood and other films.
Donc en fait, il faut trouver un ton particulier de traduction. C'est des thèmes qui sont très, propres à l'Afrique. Donc il faut trouver une manière de les traiter propre. On peut pas doubler ça comme on doublerait les Feux de l'amour. C'est autre chose.
The context is so culturally entrenched that you have to find a particular intonation and ways of.
Et ce qui s'est passé, in the beginning we took French dubbing voices with white people, but in fact it doesn't match. So together with Clementine, because she made the demand for this, at the moment we are making having African people, French-speaking African people, we have them training to learn them the dubbing because it's a very technical thing, and you cannot learn it in 3 days. It took a long time. So we have a new team of African people, French-speaking, and we are learning them, teaching them the dubbing in order to have now dubbing in Nollywood with African people speaking is more convenient. Voilà. You can translate my English.
We can understand you.
Justement, les producteurs qui sont là,
Connect to the internet.
Are you guys interested in having your movie? Because usually when you produce a movie, I think you think first about the Nigerian markets, obviously. But are you interested in having versions dubbed into French and other languages as well?
Oh, definitely.
Well, definitely. Our stories, we're telling our stories, and it's not always just for us, it's for everyone to get to experience us. So definitely we don't want to limit it only to the English-speaking people. So it's definitely an option that we should consider and that we are considering. So it's actually good to hear what you're saying.
And we are cheap.
Yeah.
And good.
I think it's important to look at Nollywood itself, because what makes Nollywood so exciting is diversity and multilingualism. So it's an assumption that the Nollywood movies will be in English, which is easier to dub than the other indigenous languages. So if we look at the multilingualism, perhaps throughout Africa, there are indigenous languages that cannot be dubbed, obviously, because of the way of the language, and everything else. So I think subtitling is still key, but it's just not just subtitling literally in either English, French, or Portuguese. It's in fact rewriting the dialogue to find the core element of the foreign language. And that's still going to be very important.
I think to further stress is the cultural distancing that you will experience when doing this translation, because it's not just the words now, because every film has a cultural package, right? And from what one has experienced of some translations have been done, so there's loss in translation, right? And from what I've experienced, from what I've heard from people who have seen some of the works translated into French from Nollywood, that loss is kind of experienced in a way. And one thing that is critical also is that in terms of those you use, you said okay, you're beginning to use blacks now. What is done in other climes is a situation where you get professionals, people who act like him.
Like her, the university people.
No, I'm not talking about that is the translation of the text. The text, you know, but in terms of delivery, you get to use the professionals who are also actors so that they can deliver the emotions.
Yeah, but they are.
Right, so I'm just saying that because some that I've seen, maybe that's why you are moving in that direction now. That's very good.
Excuse me.
That's very good.
One thing that I'm not completely okay is we need to make some dubbing from film for sell the film in the markets.
Yeah.
But I think as producers, as my experience, we play a Congolese movie we shot in Lingala. We send in 28 countries, USA, Canada, we stay in Lingala. And people react well. And I'm sure the film that I see from my bro yesterday nights, if we translate in French, we lost 45. Yes, I know. But I think the markets are very interested about film and cultural things. And that's why if we put the level higher in the film, we can maybe definitely we lost a big audience. We know that because we need independence. But I think we need to keep. Of course, we need to translate, to get inside on the plane and all those stuff because we need to sell the film, definitely. But I think we need to keep the artistic tone of it. That's important.
Really sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
We'd like to welcome Obi.
Because we have Obi Meloni who has not been introduced because
he can introduce himself.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
I'm sorry that I'm a bit late. I come from the UK, so I'm updating UK time. I'm 1 hour behind. Just to throw my hat in the discussion that is happening right now about translation.
They want to know you first.
My name is Obi Meloni, director of Last Flight to Abuja. And that is what I'm going to talk about. Last Flight to Abuja is not what was written on the text as to translation, because in fact my lawyers are already in contact. Serious, because the translation is so wrong. And I think that's what my elder, my senior brother is there talking about the loss that you experience in trying to translate, or actually transliterate is the word. Transliterate, which is you trying to exchange words. Take a Nigerian word and exchange it for an English word or a French word, and you find that the meaning is lost. Because personally, with my knowledge, very small knowledge of French, trying to translate my title, Last Flight to Abuja, it would have been Le Dernier Vol à Destination Abuja, or something like that. It is long, it is cumbersome, but at least it attempts to capture what I try to call my film. But to call it, what do you call it now? Aller sans retour means go and not come back. And I think it is very wrong. It is so wrong. That's not my film. Honestly, my lawyers are going to be in contact and we'll settle in court.
I was going to say,
European court.
I don't want to intervene in the dubbing and subtitling. I want to write about that later on. But I was just very interested in watching Konya Falayo's film yesterday, because it's not just a question of translating from English into French, or even from a Nigerian language into French, because in that film there were 4 or 5 Nigerian languages. And in the translation, in the dubbing, you know that people are speaking of something that's not English, but you don't get a sense of the individual languages. So that presents a different and an additional layer of challenge to the translator, the dubber. I understand that, of course, producers and translators are working with other kind of financial imperatives which guide their own selections and choices.
But that's why I'm really glad to be here at the Nollywood Week, because for the time being we buy all our movies to Mnet in South Africa, and we get the scripts from them, So I would be really glad to be in direct contact with all the producers to have their own choice about the scripts and the translations, etc.
The better way to go.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
I think that Mnet seems to lack the standard, to selection. It would appear as if Mnet is interested in showing the worst of language together.
Yes. They just pick everything.
Just put everything together,
and they have never. I don't know about others. I eventually agreed to sell my film to them. They never requested for the script or the.
No, I know that they do it on their own.
So they do it on their own, and it's just to buttress on what we've talked about so far. Figuring, which was the film I did before Phone Swap. At the moment we have the Portuguese subtitle, Spanish subtitle, French subtitle, English subtitle, and everywhere those films are screened, whether Japan or India or, I've never done a dub, or anything. It's just been translation. And recently, yesterday I was telling them about this film, Untouchable, which I saw on the plane. It's a French film about this cripple who employed a black guy, for me, that is one of the best films I've seen in recent time, and it has so much humor. And I only read the sub because it's French. I read the subtitle and I got it straight. Dub will work for some films, but it's not going to work for a film like Phone Swap. I doubt it. Because we are all here from different regions and yesterday everybody was laughing, hitting into one another. Even the cocky English people, when we premiered, it was the same reaction. So I'm like, okay, so the world can actually come together, watching, or, like we do when we watch football, so we just need to find a balance, identify the films that will run better, with dubbing, and those that, will do better with translation or subtitle.
I would just maybe to make a point about international markets. I think there is a question in the choice between dubbing and subtitling, which concerns also the cultural habits in some countries. I think, for example, about Italy, my country, or Spain, or France. Television is always dubbed. People are not accustomed to watch subtitle films. So I think that there is an important question when you think about export of your films. Do you think only about the African diaspora abroad, or do you think about, for example, the Italians in Italy? Because if you think about Italian audiences, they will need dubbing. They have not the habit to watch subtitle films. So in some countries, you don't really have a choice. In France, this is very peculiar because even in cinemas, in theatrical release, you can choose for most of the films between subtitling and dubbing. But in television, almost everything, I don't know if...
Yeah, everything is dubbed in France.
So you don't have the choice if you want. And of course, dubbing is a very particular kind of translation.
I agree, that's the key question, because before dubbing, then the question is, what is the target for which country? Typically in France, are you targeting the diaspora or even diaspora-related people? And that's the key question. Or the French guys and girls learning more about the Nollywood culture as a whole and trying to dig into what's behind what they see. And second point, very important in my mind, is okay, dubbing is one thing, and you have expressed that when the film is dubbed, there's a lot of inside atmosphere which is totally lost. And even though the problem now is that the films are being promoted by short video trailers. So, and maybe first discovery of the film would be through OTT platforms like YouTube and others, where the public will learn about the film through some very short video. And then it's a real difficulty, but a real gap to fill in, is to choose to be able to choose the right sequence of video, 20 seconds, that will give the most interest and atmosphere of this film towards the targeted public. First. Secondly, that this sequence, very short, is being dubbed very finely to have the public really understand what the film is about. Otherwise, you've got people that will start being interested in Nollywood content, Nollywood films. But the first experience will be through bad dubbing, bad video extracts, bad trailers, and then they won't come to movie features, they won't come to online streamings because it's not monetized. So this very short, this first step is what's the target and how your set of tools, marketing tools and video content is targeted at this target, whether it's on the desktops or mobile phones.
Sorry, just to say one thing quickly about the issue of dubbing and translation. I'm a dancer, I'm a choreographer, and most of my works are always either in English and Yoruba. We sing and we dance, and we don't expect people to expect me to translate the music, for example. But there's something that is important. The last few performances I made, some people were really angry that I wasn't speaking French. And that was in Paris. Then the last one I made in Lyon now, just like 3 days ago, I spoke to the audience in English. I told them when we were in Paris, people were angry that we didn't speak French, so now we're going to speak French. And they were really happy. And I thought, maybe me deciding not to speak French on stage, maybe I'm just losing audience in France.
Yeah, definitely.
No, sorry. Let me just finish that, bro. Sorry. So I was saying, I know that in terms of me speaking French, that is to say, I've gone from Yoruba, translating into English, then translating into French. So I personally know that I'm going to lose subtlety in the way I say. But at least the people right in front of me right now, they get me more than if I had spoken Yoruba or if I had spoken English. So is it about me or is it about them? That was my first question to myself. Then I realized that even though some people, as of today in France, a lot of French people will prefer to go to a cinema and watch the original version, subtitled, but still doesn't stop the fact that there's still a lot of people who want to hear it in French because they don't know how to read fast or they don't understand English. So I think the two ideas of dubbing and of subtitling is a question of choice now. If we have a DVD, we have the version dubbed and we have the version subtitled. Then people can choose between the two. But personally, I think with someone like Emile, he was the one that did the dubbing for Last King of Scotland, for example. He knows what it means that, maybe you can talk about that maybe.
Right. What I was going to say is, you see, in terms of performance, live performance and cinema, I think the experiences are different, kind of. You know, this life of live performances, right, lends itself to acceptance more as when you compare to film. I think what is critical is what my friend there said. What is your target, right, in terms of your audience? Because you just can't say, I want to make a movie and translate into all languages or dub into all languages. It's critical you know who you want to address. Is it the diaspora? Is it the European market? Or is it the American market? And I think that's the question that we have to answer as Nollywood, or whoever is making any film from anywhere, because there are other factors that are very critical to making such decisions, which is huge. And finance is very critical here. So I think that's what we need to look at. And more so, we begin to, the materials you are getting from Mnet, for instance, you don't have the international versions in terms of it. So it makes it more difficult for you, it makes it more expensive.
Definitely.
So
that's why we can't keep the local languages, because it would be so different from the French version, so we have to dub everything.
So those are the factors, it was very much on point, and it's what we need to look at. Because the issue of translation by dubbing or through subtitles It depends on the respective audience. Some people want to see it dubbed. I mean, I grew up watching Indian films through subtitles. That's what influenced my going to read a film. And today I'm a filmmaker by virtue of the fact that I was watching Indian films when I was very little. And I could only read some of the subtitles, not even getting to know them. I went with my father, but it influenced me into doing what I'm doing today. So,
another important point about translation, because we have talked about cinema, translation in cinema, translation on TV, but most of the time now people watch movies on the computer. So I would like to talk to Patrice Toa, who has a VOD platform. Donc voilà, et donc j'aimerais qu'on parle maintenant de la VOD parce qu'il n'y a pas que le cinéma, il n'y a pas que la télévision, mais il y a de plus en plus l'Internet. Donc voilà, je voudrais...
Relativement...
Qu'est-ce qu'on fait quand on est dans ta position en tant que plateforme VOD? Comment on fait pour adresser cette question de la langue?
Disons que pour ce qui nous concerne, donc nous pour le moment on est sur le marché français, c'est le marché français qu'on vise, donc ça revient à la question de si. Et bon, les études sont claires, hein, c'est-à-dire que si vous regardez un film sous-titré sur votre téléphone portable ou sur votre tablette, c'est assez difficile. Donc c'est clair que le doublage, c'est la meilleure solution pour le moment et en France. Bon, j'ai regardé quelques films sur Nollywood TV. Oui, juste, non, je...
Okay,
okay.
So he was saying that as a platform, especially a lot of people now watch these movies not only on the computer but also on the phones. And the studies are clear that people just don't want to read subtitles on such a small screen. So for VOD, for him, dubbing is still key.
Ok. Donc je disais que le problème effectivement c'est la qualité du doublage. J'ai regardé quelques films sur Nollywood TV et c'est vrai que je me suis pas retrouvé. Non, je me suis pas retrouvé, bon, parce que moi je connais Nollywood, je suis camerounais, donc je connais Nollywood, donc je me dis, eux, à Nollywood, ils sont peut-être mieux placés pour avoir des retours, et des retours d'audience, et savoir est-ce que des gens qui ne connaissaient pas Nollywood auparavant, comment ils ont trouvé les films. Moi, personnellement, j'ai trouvé les films complètement aseptisés, et j'ai pas pu.
This is a very important point. He said, now, dubbing is key for him as a VOD platform. But at the same time, the big problem is that the quality of the dubbing. So he's talking about Nollywood TV that is here today, and he said that Nollywood TV, all their movies are dubbed into French, and when he watches those movies, he doesn't find the essence of Nollywood in a way, because he knows Nollywood by himself, being Cameroonian and having access to that, and he finds that the voices don't reflect what he knows about Nollywood. And I guess there's an answer coming from him.
So it's a direct attack, so I have to... I'm sorry. No, I have to answer this because it's what I told in the beginning. In fact, in the beginning we had, and we still have, a technical problem. Because in France here, come l'ha detta la signora, e anche in Italia, dopo, l'anno prossimo facciamo la versione italiana di Nollywood. Like in Italia or in France, is the same problem, the same thing. We are used to dubbing since 40 years. I mean, if you want to touch a lot of people, you have to dub. If you do subtitle, you have 3 intellectual people who are going to watch it, but you are not going to touch a big audience. So that's my point, and I agree with Mr. on the dubbing. Now on the quality, I also agree with you, but what you have to know that is dubbing with synchro is a very technical thing. And in the beginning, when we begin to work for Clementine, she said we have so many hours. Now you dub it. We don't have the time to take African people and say, now come, we are going to teach you, in 3 days you are going to dub with your accent. It was not possible. So we had to take the French white people team, professional, to make, you understand? Because we had to make good.
Sorry, I have to cut you off. So
but
sorry. that means that before Nollywood TV came on the market, there was no African actors
Never.
doing dubbing professionally in France.
No, never.
But France is a very diverse country.
No, I mean you have 2 or 3 French actors who can like do something sounding like African, but it's sometimes a little ridiculous because
your budget.
and the budget.
No,
and so
because already, I mean, you have the Hollywood movies where you have professionals doing it and they're doing it perfectly well. But because you have budget constraints, you can't get professionals like that. So that's what you say. That's what I'm saying.
But
it's important.
Only point after I finish. Now we are at the moment we are speaking now. We are training a brand new African, as I told you in the beginning, because it's very simple, but something like or a French guy cannot do this.
Cannot do it.
And, we cannot do it. Our mouth is not the same. We cannot do it. And I spend so many time in recording and telling the guy, no, like this. But you take African guy, you do it right. You know? So last thing after I finish, at the moment now we are working with the French voice of Whoopi Goldberg. She's a black lady and she's very involved in what we are doing, and she's working with us, and she's teaching at the moment now a brand new African speaking French speaking team, and in the few months we have this problem will be no more, because
just to get back to you, so far the feedback that we have on the channel is very, very good. We have very good compliments. People are really happy to finally have access to Nollywood movies in French, even in France or in French-speaking Africa, because the channel is also on Canalsat. And we can notice that people are really happy about that. We had some comments about the accent, and that's why we are working together with Cinekita to have a team of French-speaking African people to do the dubbing.
Just a suggestion, which is cheaper, to have people train here or go to Africa, the Francophone or wherever the film was made, and have a studio, rent a studio,
that's the idea,
and work with the original actors, or I feel it would be cheaper for 2 of you to travel
that's the idea,
than bring or start training a bunch of.
The idea is in fact to go to Abidjan.
We are doing it as well.
I don't know what I'm talking about, because I think there's one thing more important what you said about the targets. I mean, we're talking about dubbing. Okay, we know that when we do a film, we don't think a producer or director think, I will translate or dub my film before. No. First, a story, a strong story, and I think is a local story. For example, if you think before which country I will send my film, it doesn't make no sense. And I think it's the first thing. It's when we're talking about targets, it's exactly that. That's if something's coming from the deeper and local things, sometimes can be universal. And after that, if the film is well done, the dubbing is doing definitely, because you are happy, because of course you will fight for the first audience in France, for example. You get to get a release in original language, but after that we will go to television and we make dubbing. That makes sense. I mean, it's not a big deal there's a fight between dubbing or not dubbing, but just about targets. Who is the audience, and about directors, about the story. And for example, the film that we watched yesterday night, I think there is maybe a market. That's why it's important to talk about, because you are from Nigeria, and in France, nobody knows Nigeria. They know about Nollywood, TV, cream, shoot and on the streets and low budget. And when we watch this kind of film, we say, something new, and we need to make connection, to maybe, like as you do with Kudos about this festival, French people can, discover new things, and maybe that's we need to get it.
This lady has been raising her hand. I'll say something from the production side.
The last two points.
Yeah, I just want to make a small point for my own research on Nollywood film culture. I noticed that Nollywood is a very important thing in cultural learning and cultural practice among diaspora, and parents use it to teach their children Igbo or Yoruba, like second generations in Europe. If you would do the dubbing, you might lose that as well. So that's an important thing. And then talking about different target audiences, Belgium and the Netherlands won't accept dubbing. That's countries where you have subtitles. It's not the cinematic conventions to dub. And I was also wondering, talking about dubbing in Africa. Now there are a lot of films which are dubbed in Congo, in Benin, and Ivory Coast. What about those films? Or isn't it a good dubbing? Or I guess there are differences between the countries and the way they dub Nollywood films.
Okay, I'm just going to say something a bit on the technical side, because Nollywood is, what you see in this festival is maybe what I call the creme de la creme of Nollywood, the top. But there's a whole thousands of films made in Nollywood which have the ability to travel, but because the technical demands of dubbing means that you have to separate your score and the sound effects from the dialogue. And for most Nollywood films, that's not the case. Everything comes as a unit. So when you dub a normal Nollywood film, you'll find that when you take out the audio, you take out everything. So you lose the score, you lose whatever soundtrack that has been used. So the thing is to educate the filmmakers and say, look, there's an opportunity here, because it's about opportunities. They're not going to spend the extra money to do the score and have them in different lines, and so that they can take, they can be separated if they don't know that there's value in it. So it's to educate them and say, dubbing is an opportunity for your film to reach new audiences. It's an opportunity to make more money. So if you spend that extra money to make sure that when you do your soundtrack and you do your score, you keep them in a separate track, so that when you dub, you can take away the soundtrack, take away the dialogue, replace the dialogue with the French dialogue, and still retain the essence of the entire film. And I think that's very important.
I think Nollywood TV knows a lot about that. Because
but there is also an issue about the music rights. It's not only the sound and effects.
No. You see, the point is that what is happening here? Most of the movies sold to you now, maybe they are old movies, right? The movies today have taken into cognizance some of these issues raised. The international versions are available in most of the movies that you're seeing here, right? In terms of the chain of the titles you have in those movies, they are original. There are some of them that have been licensed and all that. But the ones you have, I know, are movies that were done 2000, 2003, thereabout, right? Those ones.
We have movies from 2008, 9, even 2010.
Right. Well, fine. But you see, the point is that the person you are dealing with, Mnet, right? I know.
Like the devil.
Don't worry. I know very well that if your channel gets popular in Nigeria, right? There's another problem.
They'll get problems.
I fear for you.
No, never in Nigeria, because we don't have the rights for Nigeria.
Why? Let's just let the sleeping dog lie, right? We'll get to that when we get there. But the point is that, see, those challenges are being addressed. Movies that are being made today have international versions, and the issues of change of titles are also taken care of. So never be afraid to don't let those movies lose their essence by saying because you are afraid that they've not gotten the right. Most of them have today.
Okay, I think we have to go to the next one now, because you're losing time.
One last point.
Just one last point. Talking about dubbing, of course, I'm talking as an actor, so from the inside, and as a spectator, a worshipper of films. For me, it's so important. So commercially, or in terms of money, dubbing is maybe alright. But talking about artistic point of view, for me, dubbing is, it's betrayal. it's really betrayal. Talking about movies like the one I saw yesterday, because the thing is, the problem we have in France, me as an actor, for example, he was saying there are not many black actors dubbing. I'm one. And a lot of the people dubbing either don't know me or don't invite me because a lot of reasons. I did Last King of Scotland, and they called me because Forrest Whitaker was speaking in Swahili and he has an African accent. The problem we have in France with composing, as talking about acting, we refuse to compose. That's where our acting has gone to. Everything is flattened. When you go to the conservatoire, even having your accent from Marseille is forbidden. You know, this is it. So we speak, we act with an accent which is not French, which is from Versailles. It's not with a Parisian accent. And this is the accent we use to dub. So it has nothing to do with French culture or French, because in France, you have accent de Marseille, accent de Toulouse, accent de this, accent de that, and you never find that in French movies. Never. So composing, actors from the Anglo-Saxon side are composing. In France, we kind of realistic way of acting, which flattens and kills everything. And we have that in dubbing. And talking about films like yours, I saw yesterday, and many others I see, it's all about essence of musicality, essence of body language. It's very organic, and you cannot translate that. You have to feel it. It's from soul to soul, from heart to heart, from heart pounding to heart pounding. And everyone in this world, every human being, understand the breathing, understand the heartbeat, because when I have a film, and I'm really not against the dubbing, I'm talking as an actor. When I watch a movie dubbed, I am not getting what Denzel Washington does, but what Emile Abosolombo says. So I'm not watching Denzel Washington, I'm watching Emile Abosolombo. Because for me, cinema is about sound first, even before light, because we hear before we see. In our mother's womb, we can hear, we can feel things. So we feel with the skin, so the sound is very important. So the musicality of the language. And how do you translate, as he says, how do you translate that? How are you going to translate that? So what we get when we dub those movies, we have things like, non, je ne suis absolument pas d'accord. And it doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing. The person speaking Pidgin, the person speaking Igbo, the person speaking Yoruba, I mean, there's a musicality. And this musicality, the word has to get it. And not through French language, not through Italian language, not through Irish language, through the original source. Because when I'm going to watch an Indian movie, when I see someone doing this namaste, I want to hear how he says namaste. If I hear that in Beti, in my own language, I will not say the namaste like that. I would say it otherwise. And you don't get Indian, you get Beti, I don't know what, Beti feeling. And the feeling we have to get is feeling from Nigerian directors, Nigerian soul, Nigerian, it's not.
Yeah, I think we have to go to the next one. But anyway, anybody who is interested in dubbing Nollywood film, we have a lot of Nigerian community living in France. That's already a good thing for me. Taiwo is an artist. This man here is more Nigerian than myself. I am a Nigerian. We have a lot of Nigerian community who can do that, who speaks French very well, and who can also do that. So even without going too far, I think please we have to go to the next one because it's 11:30.
I was about to say exactly the same thing as you. I think you have lost too much time talking about dubbing, because at the end, the question of the dubbing belongs only to the local distributors. That's it. And there is another thing also. There is no specificity on your cinema. It's exactly the same with Iron Man. It's exactly the same with Manuel de Oliveira in Portugal. All the films. So at the end, the question of the dubbing belongs to the local distributor, because the local distributor knows the market. You don't know this market. Your question, the thing that you have to think about is how you can position your film in the international market. and what is your specificity on that. So forget about the dubbing, because it doesn't belong to you again. Even if it's a big business, as I understand.
Very big. You cannot imagine.
Okay, so this
clandestine point of view.
Can I just ask for just one thing, because maybe I'm the only clandestine here. Can you just tell us, or tell me maybe, just a few basics, like how many films are you producing, 1,000 something, how many screens do you have, how many TV channels, just this kind of thing, just for me to understand what is the picture. Oh, Nollywood, of course, no. Bollywood I know, Hollywood I know, Hollywood I know also, US I know.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we are treating with the conference tomorrow, and we have a lot of people dealing with that tomorrow.
Okay.
But I think
so you're going to have to come back tomorrow.
Exactly.
I will come back tomorrow.
But what we want